Since June 2016, the 23rd of June, the entire country of the United Kingdom has been sort of jittery just on what is going to happen to the future of the country once Brexit actually happens. At the moment, what we know is Theresa May, the Prime Minister, has triggered Article 50 or has put forward a plan to sort of officially initiate Brexit with the European Union, which is to exit the European Union. So the divorce is going to happen and there's no debate about that. But there's one region in the United Kingdom, which is Scotland, has been just absolutely sort of on pins and needles. There is this big threat in 10 Downing, because I keep visiting that place often, so I do know that there's this buzz that, oh, will there be another referendum? Will Scotland move away? Will people choose the European Union over the United Kingdom? We don't know. How many of you voted in the 2014 Scottish referendum? You did?
Yeah, we did.
You did as well? Okay, so all four of them did vote, and may I ask, yes or no? You voted no.
Same, yeah, no.
You said no. You said no as well, which is quite simple why we got a 55% no and why we got a little less yes. But is that changing now? Have you thought of it, and is that changing? What is the UK without the EU?
The way you said is that the uncertainty in Scotland started before Brexit, when the first referendum was announced, and by and large, Indian population, I can't say 100% for anything, but by and large, the Indian population or the immigrants, they have supported to remain in UK. The same was the case if you see Scotland overwhelmingly stay with Europe. So, as the uncertainty started there. Now with the Brexit, there is another uncertainty. Yeah. And with Nicola Sturgeon pushing in for the next referendum will be the third uncertainty. So the Scotland, most of the capital projects are almost stalled. People are not taking any decisions.
Are the Indians at the moment, or even earlier in the earlier referendum, inclined towards the UK because that seems like a better brand to be associated with?
Well, I suppose, yeah. I mean, it is actually, obviously there's a history to that actually. Obviously we were ruled by the British before actually, so there is that sort of lag of that which is kind of still lingering here. But I was just mentioning to you the human side of this actually. Clearly, you know, the Indians who come in here, there's a wave of kind of nationalism going on around the world anyway actually. Yes. And you see that in India obviously we're quite against the Kashmiri separatists or something like that actually. So if you kind of extrapolate that to what's happening here, you would naturally feel the Asians or Indians would not want to support something which secedes from a major country actually. So I feel there's that sense as well actually, as much as I can understand what's probably happening in Scotland as well, because in Scotland there's not sort of it's a very benign kind of nationalism here actually. You probably have more Punjabis voting for you know, the referendum as much as Gaelic speaking people voting for referendum. So really there's not that sort of hardcore nationalism where immigrants would feel threatened about actually. So I suppose although I said no last time and I was very clear no, I'm not saying I'm going to say yes this time, but it's going to be really, you need to think about this actually in the sense, but because you've been pulled out
instead of following the herd which believes that it's better to be associated with a national country. What is the Indian Scottish man thinking? When I say man, I mean the working population, people who live here. What are they thinking about this whole Brexit that has happened? Is it very different from what London and the rest of England is feeling?
The important question is, why would referendum happen in first place? So the first referendum happened because the oil was at a spike at that point. It was doing really well and it was contributing in some shape and form to the Scottish economy. The oil has dipped globally. So there is no serious plank for Scotland to make a business case out of referendum. Second, there is no central bank in Scotland. So either it has to depend on business rates, or business interest rates set in London or in Brussels. Neither of them is going to be a good idea. So for us as an Indian community, there is nothing to hold on to Scotland being independent, because again, getting back into the EU is going to be a long cycle. It's going to be a long, so you're talking about at least 5
years. You're talking about uncertainty, which I think we don't want.
Yeah, drive all the decision making in this area.
It would be fair to conclude that the Scottish Indian at the moment, perhaps he has indicated a vote for that, is sitting on the fence and wondering which Which side is looking greener?
Yes, personally, I'm still not convinced that Scottish independence is going to give us anything more than anything more in terms of the employability or the business side of things. Then Brexit is bad, according to me.
But UK is better than EU.
But then one divorce is bad. That doesn't mean that the second marriage will one divorce and another marriage means this is going to be too complicated. Nobody knows what the impact is, and we are all trying to guess something, like the way people guess.
That's a totally man's perspective of things, I must say.
I think we have to wait and watch. This is all going to unravel, isn't it, in the next 2 years actually? So it's quite difficult to call it now actually. But as you said, I'm kind of leaning towards. I don't know if I'm leaning towards. I'm as confused as anybody else. So it is a very difficult. Well, I think the economy corrects itself eventually actually. But the human side of it is what it takes a longer time to do that actually.
There is a general level of skepticism in Scotland about Conservatives, but now they are making quite good inroads because the SNP is giving them at least something, somebody who is unequivocal in staying with the UK, and the other party is there. It's the, what do I say? It's the failure of Labour, which has led to all these things.
In many countries, they say, like in India, it's the failure of the opposition, which perhaps keeps the government.
Was not in opposition here. Labour was the ruling class.
Yes.
Labour means the first minister, Scotland, when it was given the parliament, Donald Dewar was the first minister, first time, and it was his initiative to get the independence of the Scottish Parliament. What they have done is they have just let this, the way Cameron goofed up thinking that this Brexit is just a cakewalk, it's not going to happen.
And Brexit is not.
And similarly, they didn't really countered SNP at the start about SNP was born for with one agenda to get Scotland independence. We can't blame them. That's their only survival method. But they have not countered it effectively. And what they have done is they have let the messaging go and go and go. And with the crisis, financial crisis, lots of people were in trouble, and SNP came back and said, look, your all money was siphoned off to Westminster and you are not getting it.
Okay, thank you for summing up the politics. But like this gentleman who's lived here for nearly 2 decades now has summed up, they hate England, but they're going to be together, looks like. Thank you very much. Write your views if you're a Scottish Indian, if you're someone of Indian origin who could be living in any part of the United Kingdom, not just in Scotland. What is your view? Is all I want to know.
Say is, don't like doesn't mean hate. In democracy, I don't like England doesn't mean I hate England.
You're allowed anything in democracy, so that, and we are in the mother of democracy. So a view is a view.